Hello, dear members of the Drama of Life family. Today we will bring you an emotional love story. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any meaningful stories. Isabelle Moore was born into a modest family in suburban Ohio. Her childhood was not the sweetest, but there was enough love for her to never feel out of place. Her mother was a piano teacher. Her father was an air conditioning engineer. Life was not rich but cozy enough for her to believe in the goodness of the world. But it all came crashing down one freezing winter night when the car carrying her parents lost control on the highway and crashed straight into a cliff. She was only 10 years old. Little Isabelle, shivering in her pajamas, was taken to a local orphanage. No relatives wanted to adopt her, and from there, the world began to close in on her, one by one. The orphanage where she lived was no place for dreams. Isabelle learned to be quiet, to be silent when bullied, to not expect anyone to defend her. She grew up with deep-set eyes, messy brown hair, and a voice so soft that people sometimes thought she was mute. But deep down, Isabelle refused to let herself be drowned. She studied hard, worked hard, was always the last one to clean up, always volunteered to wash dishes, mop floors, keep order. She didn't want anyone's pity. She just wanted to stand up from the darkness. At 18, she left the camp, carrying just 2 sets of clothes, her mother's old diary, and $200 that a nun had quietly slipped into her hand. Isabelle headed to New York, a city she had only known from movies, to start a new life. She did whatever she could: kitchen assistant, babysitting, cleaning hotel rooms, waitressing. She saved every penny she earned. She didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't socialize with anyone, because she was afraid. Afraid of being taken advantage of, afraid of being cheated, afraid of losing what she had worked so hard to build. Until one night, a night that changed her life completely. It was a lavish party at a luxury hotel for the super rich. Isabelle was a temporary waitress, hired through a staffing agency. In a black and white uniform and a silver tray in hand, she quietly made her way through hundreds of guests, all glittering in gowns and diamonds. While she was hastily pouring more wine for table number 17, a sudden turn caused the glass of red wine on the tray to tip over, spilling onto a man standing behind her. The white designer shirt was immediately stained with wine like blood. Isabelle froze. Her heart was pounding. Only one thought ran through her mind. "I'm being fired. Now!" She bowed her head and mumbled an apology. But instead of a scolding or a contemptuous look, she heard a deep, gentle male voice. "This is the first time someone spilled wine on my shirt, and I felt grateful." She raised her head. Before her was a tall man with dark brown hair, strange gray eyes like the winter sky, and a smile that she couldn't take her eyes off. Isabelle did not know that he was Leonard Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Enterprises, one of the most powerful men in the city. He was also involved in dozens of love scandals with models, actresses, heiresses. She just thought he was a guest, and she didn't understand why he wasn't angry. After that fateful night at the party, where she spilled wine on his expensive shirt, Isabelle thought she was going to lose her job. But Leonard just laughed, and from that day on, he started showing up regularly, sometimes just to order an espresso, sometimes sitting for hours just watching her work. "You're different, you know," he'd said when they happened to be standing next to each other at the kitchen counter. She'd laughed, not believing his advances. But Leonard wasn't like the other men who'd tried to buy her off with promises or money. He was patient, gentle, and sincere. Isabelle didn't know when she started loving him. Maybe it was the night he waited outside the cafe for her to finish work, bringing her 2 hot sandwiches and a small blanket. "Just so you don't think you're alone." Or maybe it was the time he wrote each letter by hand, leaving it on her door every morning, recounting his dreams, the little things he saw the day before. Everything happened slowly but deeply. He didn't rush, didn't force. Isabelle felt heard, respected, something she had never felt in her life. But the past still haunts her. Once she coldly said to him, "Leonard, you know who I am. An orphan, growing up without anyone loving me, no money, no name. I don't belong to your world." He just kept silent, then pulled her into his arms. "Then let me create a new world where you belong." A year later, he proposed, not on a yacht, not in a 5-star restaurant, but in the small garden behind the orphanage where she had lived. He knelt among the wildflowers Isabelle had planted when she was 10 and presented her with a simple, sparkling ring. I don't need a princess. I need you, the real one. Isabelle choked. She said nothing, or nodded. Her heart screamed to believe him, but the fear remained. Fear that one day he would leave like everyone else. But Leonard didn't give up. He continued to love her, as if she had agreed. Every day, every meeting, every handshake was a reminder. I'm still here. She thought she was starting to believe. And then one morning she woke up to find a wedding invitation on the table. Their names embossed, and underneath it, we don't need to be perfect, just real. Isabelle burst into tears. For the first time in her life, she let herself dream. The days leading up to the wedding were both sweet and chaotic. Journalists clamored for information. Tabloid headlines read, "Flirtatious CEO proposes to former waitress." But Leonard didn't care. He just held her and said, "Let me shield you from it all." She tried on her wedding dress in a small studio in Brooklyn, which she chose because it was closest to her childhood dream. She even called in some of the orphans who had lived with her to be her bridesmaids. This wasn't a fairy tale wedding. This was real life, and she thought she was ready. The wedding day arrived. An ancient seaside castle was decorated as if it were straight out of a movie. The wind was gentle, the sky was blue, and the waves were gently lapping against the cliffs. Over 500 guests were present, including businessmen, politicians, and media. She stood in front of the mirror, her eyes sparkling with hope. The makeup artist said she looked like a modern-day princess. Isabelle smiled. No, she was not a princess. She was a girl who had been through hell and was now entering heaven. She walked out of the room, her hands shaking slightly as she held the wedding bouquet. But when the music started, when the doors to the chapel opened and all eyes turned to her, no Leonard. No one stands at the end of the red carpet. She stood still under the hundreds of eyes, the whispers. Her phone vibrated. A text message from Leonard's number. Just one line. "I'm sorry, please don't look for me." One line. Just one line. And her whole world collapsed. Whispers rang out. Flashbulbs flashed. The bride was tricked? Someone else whispered. Maybe he found out she's not a pushover. Each word was a knife to Isabelle's heart. But she didn't cry. She had no more tears. Isabelle turned and walked out of the church, as if she could just run a little faster, she could escape the nightmare that was consuming her. But the dream did not let her go. The press dubbed her the dumped bride on TV. A video of her standing there, stunned, in the middle of the ceremony, her billowing white dress a laughingstock to the world, went viral on social media. Worse still, advertising contracts were canceled. Promises turned into threats. The Caldwell family, who had once happily invited her to pose for photos to build their image, now called lawyers, demanding damages for damage to their reputation. No one listened to her. No one asked if she was okay, because she had no status, no power, nothing but a broken heart. That night, Isabelle took a bus south, carrying a small suitcase and her muddy wedding dress. She chose New Orleans, a strange place where no one knew her. She rented a small room in a working-class neighborhood. The walls were peeling. The alley behind her was noisy, but at least here, no one whispered behind her back. During the day, she washed dishes in an Italian restaurant. At night, she bartended at a bar. At night, she learned to cook with free online videos, trying to keep her mind from rotting with memories. She spent all her remaining savings on therapy. The therapist asked, "Do you still believe in love?" Isabelle just smiled faintly. "I was going to marry a man." Then he ran away like a ghost. Time doesn't heal, but it does make her a different person. Stronger, tougher, and never letting anyone touch her heart again. 10 years later, Isabelle is the owner of a small mobile bakery. She sells pastries, coffee, and sandwiches that are simple but surprisingly delicious, because each cake is a part of her memories, a little tenderness left in a life full of scratches. Every morning, a long line of people waited to buy bread. People in the neighborhood called her Sister Isabelle, the woman who always listened, always had a warm smile, although her eyes never hid the sadness. She didn't think she would ever love anyone again, and she was okay with that, until one rainy night. The wind blew in gusts, and the rain beat against the frame of the car. Isabelle was unpacking when she saw a figure approaching, tall, drenched in a frayed coat, holding no umbrella. She stepped forward, intending to say the door was closed, but when the streetlight fell on his face, she froze. Leonard. There he stood, no longer the flashy CEO he once was. His beard was scraggly, his clothes were wrinkled, his eyes were dark, his lips were blue from the cold. He said nothing, just looked at her, a pleading, pained look. "Please, just listen to me." Isabelle didn't answer. She slammed the car door. Her hands were shaking, from anger, fear, or her heart, pounding wildly with each beat. She couldn't tell. The next day he came again. The rain had stopped, but he still stood silently in front of the car. Bought a small cake. Didn't say anything. The third day, the fourth day, he came every day. Always the first in line. Always bowed his head to say thank you, then quietly left. Rumors spread. Someone recognized him. Is that Leonard Caldwell? He used to be the CEO of a billion-dollar corporation, right? He seems to have gone bankrupt. I heard he was fired from the company. Isabelle didn't say anything, but her heart, despite trying to be strong, still beat wildly whenever he appeared. Then one day she followed him after closing the cart door. He didn't go far, just turned a few streets and entered an old building. The sign outside reads, Rehabilitation Center, Reintegration Support for Former Prisoners. Isabelle was stunned. Leonard lives there. The small room in the rehabilitation center contained only an iron bed, a wooden table, and dim yellow light. Isabelle sat upright, her hands clasped together so tightly that her nails dug into her skin. In front of her, Leonard sat with his head bowed, his calloused hands clasped together, as if holding on to the last remnants of his dignity. "Explain," she said. Her voice was not high, but colder than any rain that had ever fallen on Leonard. "Why?" He raised his head, his eyes sunken and tired, but not shy. "I've been meaning to tell you for a long time," Leonard began, his voice rough as a rock scraping against sand. "But I was afraid, if you knew, it would hurt you more than if I were gone." "You think I don't hurt?" Isabelle laughed. "I've been through 10 years of hell, Leonard. Every day I watch people laugh at me, curse me, for a crime I didn't commit, because of you." Leonard bowed his head, silent for a long time. Then he told. On the day of the wedding, as he was getting into the car to drive to the church, he received a call from one of his father's former assistants. The man said his mother, Evelyn Caldwell, was in critical condition at a private medical facility. They said if he didn't get there right away, she wouldn't make it. Leonard dropped everything and drove like crazy to the scene, only to be surrounded by strangers. In a locked room, his once respected father, Thomas Caldwell, sat waiting with a written agreement. "If you don't sign here and cancel the wedding, your mother won't be able to continue her treatment. We'll stop the medication. It's that simple." Leonard didn't believe it. He screamed, banged the table, and lunged at his father. But two guards rushed forward. A blow to the back of his head knocked him down. When he woke up, he was in a cell, handcuffed, and an inspector was reading out an arrest warrant. Crime, embezzlement of charity funds, with full evidence, signatures, transfers, all in his name. In less than 24 hours, Leonard went from being the groom at the top of the corporation to being a financial criminal on every newspaper. He was not allowed to contact anyone outside. His lawyers did not dare to represent him. His friends disappeared. In court, he tried to tell the truth, but no one believed that a powerful man could be harmed by his own father. The court sentenced him to 5 years in prison. His mother, the only person who could testify, died after the first trial due to lack of further treatment. "I didn't know until I got a letter from the head nurse," Leonard choked up. "It was handwritten and she said my mother had called my name until the last minute. She didn't know where I was. No one had told her." The company collapsed within a year. His father sold his assets and fled the country. No one pursued him. The scandal was pinned on Leonard like a perfect card. When Leonard got out of prison, he had nothing. No home, no money, no identity. He searched everywhere trying to find Isabelle, but she had logged off all social media, changed her phone number, deleted her from all her old friends' contacts. "I used to stand in front of the orphanage, hoping you would come back. I used to go to every coffee shop in New York. just hoping that one day you would walk in. Isabelle sat motionless. She felt as if someone was squeezing her heart, not from pain, but from a truth too great, too cruel to accept. I've been here for almost 2 years, Leonard continued. I work for charities, teaching jobs to ex-inmates like myself. But every night I still think about you, about that day, about not being able to say goodbye. There was a long silence. Only the ticking of the clock and the sound of rain tapping on the window could be heard. Isabelle turned away, but the tears welled up in her eyes before she knew it. They were no longer tears of anger, tears of grief, of loss, of belated understanding. She sobbed like a child, uncontrollable, defenseless. Leonard didn't come near. He just sat there looking at the woman he had lost, and now might never get back. After that night, Isabelle never saw Leonard again. He disappeared as quietly as he had appeared. No greeting, no letter, no trace. She didn't know what to feel, relief that she was no longer haunted by the memories, or pain that, once again, he had left without holding her hand tightly. In the following days, Isabelle tried to live as usual. She returned to her cake cart, still woke up at 4 a.m., still made coffee for the poor workers in the neighborhood, still smiled, still talked, but no one knew how many sleepless nights she had. Her face became thinner, her eyes were swollen. There were times when she saw a tall figure passing by, her heart would clench, only to realize it wasn't him. Then the big storm came. It was a stormy night. The wind tore the awning off, the sign flew over and fell onto the street. Isabelle stood there in the rain, watching her cart collapse. Every single thing she had saved up for years now shattered. She burst into tears in the open air, for the first time in a long time, not because of pain, but because of helplessness. The next morning, neighbors came to help, but most just stood by and watched. The cost of repairing the car was too great. Isabelle sat in the puddle, mud on her dress, her hair a mess. And then she saw something she didn't expect. The car's frame was being welded together, a new sign was being put up, new hardware was being brought in. It was all done in the dark, in secret. She ran over and asked who had done it. No one answered. The only sign left was a handwritten letter in an old wooden box under the driver's seat. Isabelle opened it, her heart trembling. Inside was the wedding ring, the one Leonard had used to propose to her years ago, and more than 20 letters, written in hasty, scribbled, sometimes smudged handwriting. There were letters written when he was still in prison, letters when he was looking for her in the city, and letters with just one line. I'm still alive, but just a shadow without you. The last letter was the shortest, just one line. If one day you find yourself again, I hope you will forgive me. For the first time in 10 years, Isabelle no longer cried because she was hurt, but because she knew she was still loved. And she walked all the streets he had been to, through the little churches, the soup kitchens where he had taught and cleaned for free. Each place left a trace. People called him the vagabond with a heart of gold, but no one knew where he was now. Finally, she found an old church in the suburbs, where he once said, "If I have nothing left, I still want to be a good person somewhere." Entering the churchyard, she saw him. Leonard, in his old shirt, was sweeping leaves under the old oak tree. He was the same figure, but now there was a peaceful look in his eyes. She walked over, her heart sinking. This time she didn't run away from her feelings. "Leonard!" He turned around. Seeing her, his eyes widened, as if he couldn't believe it. He said nothing, just stood there, motionless. Isabelle walked closer, slowly, step by step, as if she was walking through 10 years in her heart. She stopped in front of him, holding out her hand. "If I say yes now, would you dare appear again?" Leonard was speechless. He didn't dare touch her, afraid that this was a dream. But when she squeezed his hand tightly, he knew. This was reality. They hugged each other in the middle of the churchyard, where the bells rang out again and again, like a heartbeat being awakened. No wedding dress, no lights, no flowers, no champagne. Only a man who was lost and a woman who was abandoned, bravely standing in the world they once feared. Isabelle leaned her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. This time, she was no longer afraid, because she knew This man had given up everything to protect his love. And although life is never a fairy tale, she believes that as long as two hearts are sincere enough, they can write the most beautiful ending with their own hands.